Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for a Steelers Q&A. It's Sunday. There's football being played today. The Pro Bowl doesn't count as football, so we're not talking about it. We will be talking a little bit about the Pro Bowl, but it's a special show. It's a little bit earlier than usual on this Sunday, but I'm joined with Lance Williams, my usual co-host for The Standard is the Standard and the Steelers postgame show. Lance, what is going on?
What's happening, Steeler Nation? This is a Sunday brunch for all of you who may partake in church or some type of worship service who are playing hooky. You can join us and be bad.
Well, yeah, that is not on this episode. Yeah. The other person joining us is Dave Schofield. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm just happy to be on the same screen as Lance. It's an honor and a privilege to be with the I can't call you the Oracle because that's what you call me. We'll just call you the podcaster extraordinaire.
I wish
the tartan. I wish Carnegie Mellon tartans.
I wish that you lived in the South because I could easily call you the mouth from the South. Like that would be the perfect.
But that's who's that? Was Mean G?
No, it wasn't Mean G. It was Jimmy Hart, wasn't it?
Jimmy Hart.
Yes.
From the South. He always had that the bullhorn and
that's right. That's right.
Or I just like Sir Lancelot that Brian gave you. So there we go. Gentlemen, it's Sunday. The Pro Bowl is being played today. And I like what Wes said. Land narcissist. I love that. But the narcissist was used in wrestling too. That was Lex Luger. He was the narcissist. They used to bring out the mirror and he used to flex in front of the mirror and all the girls would hold. Oh, that was great. Yeah, so that was actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Dave, you remember him, right?
I remember Lex. I didn't know the narcissist. I remember Mr. Perfect and Mr. Beautiful.
Mr. Perfect with the perfect plex. That was great.
Yes.
Love that.
And Orndorff was Mr. Beautiful, right? Paul Orndorff.
See, you're getting into like WCW stuff.
I thought that was Mr. Wonderful.
No, that's Mr. Wonderful. Yes, yeah. Paul Orndorff. Yes, with the power driver. That was his signature move.
Yeah, that was old school WWF. When it was still the F.
So I'm dating myself. Obviously, I'm older than those two other gentlemen in the YouTube program. So
not by very much.
Some more than others. We'll put it that way. Okay. The topic of today's episode is not the Pro Bowl. It is defense. Everyone has talked about recently, and I've listened to our shows. I listen to all of our shows, regardless of whether I'm on them or not. And I was checking out the live chat during Dave's show and Lance's show recently. And a lot of people have the same common denominator in terms of their thoughts about the upcoming season in 2020. And that is, if Ben Roethlisberger comes back healthy, put him with this defense, and you have a Super Bowl contender. And everyone has talked ad nauseum about Ben Roethlisberger, and Lance just wants to see the guy on a treadmill. Just take a video, put it on Twitter of him walking on a treadmill, and Lance will be fine. Lance will say, he's back. Here he goes. He's back.
Yes. Anyways,
I kept on thinking to myself, what about the other part of this equation? Everyone's talking about if Ben comes back healthy, which is important. It is in my opinion, it's the cornerstone of what could be a successful 2020 season. But what about the defense? They've had a ton of success, especially in 2019. Is that sustainable? So let's look back at the last 3 seasons in 2 categories, sacks and takeaways. And then we're going to break it down and say, is this style of defense, is this success sustainable? Lance has those numbers. Lance, go ahead and fire those off. Just do one at a time.
So I'm going to give you the sack number. So in the last 3 years, the Pittsburgh Steelers have led the National Football League in sacks in each of those years. 2017, team record 56 sacks. 2018, 52 sacks. And last year, 54 sacks, led by perennial All-Pro TJ Watt with 14 and a half.
Right. Now, we all sat here in one way or another. I know we said it on the Steelers preview, and Lance and I said it on the Standard as a Standard. And we were asking the question as the season was coming up, will the Steelers have 50 or more sacks in 2019? And I'm pretty sure that to a man, myself included, we all said no. Because we didn't think that they would be able to do that again, that these numbers that they were putting out, that there's no way they would be able to actually sustain that amount of getting to the quarterback, especially with roster turnover and things like that. Yet here we are. They're coming off a 54 sack season, and Here they had the three years in a row they've had over 50 more. Dave, there's not been a lot of teams that have been able to put up 50 or more sacks in 3 seasons. The Steelers are not the only team that has done it, but the teams that have are few and far between. What do you think has led to the Steelers being able to do this?
That's a great question. I think it's that you're getting pressure both up the middle and on the edge. I mean, look, you've got Cam Hayward, all pro 2 out of the last 3 years coming up the middle. You've got Stephon Tuitt when healthy. He was having a better year than Hayward up until when he got hurt. Then when you add that TJ Watt coming around the outside, and this year finally Bud Dupree, when it's coming at you, and of course Javon Hargrave, who had more sacks in 2018 than in 2019, but you can't just anticipate it coming from one place. It's coming from everywhere. It's so even. You can't double team them all. You just can't. So someone's going to win their 1-on-1 matchup and get to the quarterback. They've just had so much talent up front.
54 sacks without Stephon Tuitt. Think about that. So, Lance, I'll ask you the same question. Other than what Dave said, how do you think the Steelers have been able to schematically, because the last 3 years, the defense wasn't always considered elite or even good or even great. Go back to 2017, really the only thing they did well was get after the quarterback, because that was the year, correct me if I'm wrong, that they just blitzed the living daylights out of the opposition, because it was either you lived and died by it. And that's the way that they lived, and ultimately that's how they died by it. But Lance, what would you say in regards to, what has led to this, the success of getting to the quarterback?
Well, I think it's sort of what Dave said, and I think you've had the emergence of the interior defensive line be able to get pressure. But I think it goes back to an old adage that I used to use: the young guys have become the guys. You've got the emergence of TJ Watt. Now you have the emergence of Bud Dupree and the Gravedigger. So you have 3 young players have now emerged to be arguably superstars and some of the best players at their position in the National Football League. You couple that with the addition of Joe Hayden and a better play on the back end and, pressure bust pipes. You get better coverage. You give elite players that are emerging and getting better more chance to get to the quarterback, giving them more time, and thus the numbers start ringing up. And you couple that with the sustained first-team All-Pro play of Cam Hayward, who is now playing probably the best football in the last 3 years of his entire career. You put that all together, and you get 172 sacks over the last 3 seasons.
Well, okay, let me ask you a quick sidebar. Bud Dupree is obviously a very key cog in this discussion, this debate, this equation that we're talking about. Bud Dupree, although leading up to 2019, did not have mind-blowing statistics from a sack standpoint, but he did with 11.5 in 2019. Let's say that the Steelers let him walk, and that's something that Lance has talked about a lot on his shows, whether it was, the salary cap episode, or whether it was just when you did your own show, the Steelers burning question on why they should let him walk. Let's say the Steelers decide they're not going to franchise tag him. Do you think that they would prioritize Javon Hargrave after that? So you're saying, look, we can't afford to, Bud Dupree, that $16 million that's going to need to be allocated in salary cap space for him. We're not willing to get rid of all these guys to just get one player. So you're not going to sign him. Do you prioritize Hargrave, Lance, or do you say we don't really need to pay this guy that much money when he's not going to be a full-time player?
I would, but I think it goes to the point that you just said. I don't think the Steelers will prioritize him because they think he is not like in sub packages. I don't think they think he's going to play enough snaps to warrant that big of a deal. And I think he's going to get big money, but I don't think they respect that nose tackle position like some other teams in the league might. So I don't think they're going to offer him the type of money that he's going to get on the open market. So I think he won't be there, which is going to leave a gap of possibly you don't have Dupree and you don't have the Gravedigger. Now, I don't think you should. I think they should let, of course, Dupree walk, but I don't think they're going to. So I think in terms of a sack differential, I don't think you're going to lose anything there with sacks because I anticipate that The outside linebackers will still be Dupree and Watt, and then you'll have Tuitt, and you'll just have to find a base nose tackle to play in a base 3-4.
What about you, Dave? What do you think about Hargrave and all that stuff?
Well, if you can't use the franchise tag on Hargrave either, if you're not going to use it on Dupree, because it's only about $1 million less, because I don't think they classify nose tackle under that. All they have is defensive tackle. So it would be $15 million. So that's not a realistic option. And you do realize this year they technically could tag them both if they had the money, because it being the last year, they couldn't franchise tag them. They could use a franchise tag on one and a transition tag on the other. I actually have an article that'll be coming out on the site sometime about that it's one of those strange things, because it's the final year of the CBA.
Yeah, Ian, but when it comes to Hargrave,
I think Lance is spot on. Yeah. Lance is spot on that with Stephon Tuitt coming back, how in the world do you justify paying him that big of a contract when two of your top 4 cap numbers are already your other 2 defensive tackles?
Yeah, that's a great point.
To then have to pay him that, knowing that you're only in a defense where all 3 of them could be on the field at the same time 30% or less of the time.
Let me add something to what you said, Dave. Couple that with the fact that they played a 1-5-5 this year. So they took 2 defensive linemen off the field. I mean, they played not a significant amount of snaps, but they played a 1-5-5. I mean, they came up with a defensive alignment that took 2 defensive linemen off the field, and they just kept Cam Hayward on the field standing up as a pass rusher. So that shows you right there to what Dave said. You have to play a bunch of snaps to get probably a tag for the Steelers. You probably have to play, I would guess 85% of the defensive snaps are up. If you're not playing that number of snaps, you're probably not going to get a tag from them.
I agree. So Lance, let's go over the takeaway statistics from the last 3 seasons.
You want to do plus minus, or you want to do total takeaway numbers?
Let's just do total takeaway numbers.
Can I throw in one more thing with sacks with the Steelers?
Sure.
Do you realize that the Steelers currently have a 57 game streak of at least 1 sack per game? So it's not like they're just completely stacking them up. They're getting at least 1 every game. The next closest team is the Panthers with 30. So they've almost had them double.
That's awesome.
Here we go. Which streak is more impressive? Their turnover streak of 23 games, or the sack streak of 57? I'll take the sacks at 57.
Yeah, they're both for the wrong, but one for the right reason, one for the wrong reason. So I just wanted to throw that out there to you guys before we moved on to the.
That's a good statistic, man. That's really good. Go ahead, Lance.
And that's why Dave is the oracle. Let me give you the turnover numbers from 2017. So 2017 they had 22, which was ranked 15th. They had 16 interceptions, 6 fumble recoveries. 2018 was the anemic turnover season. They had 8 interceptions and 7 fumble recoveries, which was 30. That was 15. And last year they had 38 turnovers, which ranked first in the National Football League, 20 interceptions, which was second, and 18 fumble recoveries, which was first. Now, to your point, Jeff, about the turnover streak, although they had 38 turnovers, which is a ridiculous number, they were only +8. That means they turned it over 30 times. So,
they
took it and gave it.
Yes, a lot.
Both. A lot. Yes.
Okay, so I always ask this question at least once an off season when we do these articles, that you're trying to draw up some discussion. You want to give the community a place to kind of talk about football, and it's what begat the other. And then you talk about, like in the book of Genesis in the Bible, is he begat, they begat, and begat, and begat, and begat. Is it the pass rush that turns into turnovers? Or is it the secondary coverage that leads to sacks, And yes, you can get down into specific plays where this was a coverage sack and this was TJ Watt beating his tackle one-on-one. You can get into specific plays, but from a generality standpoint, these statistics don't make sense. The Steelers have, in 2017, 56 sacks. And how many takeaways did they have that year, Lance?
22.
22, not bad. They have 52 in 2018.
Yes.
And how many turnovers?
15.
15. It doesn't make sense. So, guys, here's my question. What do we make of this? What do we make of this entire equation from a total standpoint? Sacks usually lead to hurried throws, contested throws, and more turnovers, yet the stats don't show us that. Lance, you are a numbers guy. You said it in your show on Friday night. You look at stats to tell the story. I am not a stats guy. I think that stats can be deceiving and you can manipulate them one way or the other in a way to fit a narrative. We'll put it that way. But Lance, when you see these numbers, there's really no correlation, right?
There's no correlation between sacks and turnovers. Turnovers are just freaky stats in and of themselves. I mean, they take a life of their own. You can't really, there's no particular thing that you can tie together with turnovers. Turnovers are just weird. I mean, they're just absolutely weird. And that's why, it's often said in the National Football League, you can't live off of turnovers. If you have a defense that generates a bunch of turnovers one year, like we see with the Steelers, the next year you won't. I mean, when it comes to defensive football, if you want to be a good defense, get pressure and cover. I think now in the National Football League, I think coverage actually is more important, than pass rush. I think now the way they spread people out, you can essentially offensively scheme away pass rush. You can get the ball out. You can put a lot of multiples out. You can force a lot of guys to cover. You can limit the number of pass rushers. You can really compromise the pass rush if you've got a halfway decent offensive line and a really, really good quarterback who understands pressure, where he's going to get pressure from, and how to beat pressure. Coverage, I think, right now is the thing. I think there's a closer correlation, and the Oracle may agree with me on this or not, is sacks and points per game. Because I think when you get a lot of sacks, when you get sacks, you basically end possessions. I mean, if you get a sack, you're probably going to end a possession and you're not going to score in that possession, because more than likely you're going to be in a second and long, which we into a third and long or a third and medium, where you might even get another sack. You get a second down sack, you put a team into a 3rd and 14, something like that, they're going to punt. And a lot of times you're going to prevent scores when you get sacks. So if you get sacks, I think you limit points, but sacks don't necessarily correlate to turnovers. Turnovers are great because they take away a possession from your opponent and give you an extra possession. But points per game is the thing. And I think if you get sacks, you limit points per game.
Dave, thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. Something I was going to say was something that Ken from New Jersey brought up in the live chat. I had it in mind before he even said it, but how much our guys have gotten, especially TJ Watt, at the strip sack. Mm-hmm. That we had a lot more strip sacks this year. Now, even with that, that's one of those fluky things. I think they had him the year before, but they never got the recovery. It's just, which this year, I think when the more defenders you have around the quarterback, the more likely you are to recover those kind of things. But when it comes to the whole turnovers versus sacks, that was where a lot of people were very critical of the Steelers defense last year, because they had so many sacks and so few turnovers. But also, if a quarterback doesn't fear your pass defense, your secondary, then when that pressure is coming, they're still going to try to make that throw. This year, with how much they shored up the secondary, you had to make a better throw in the first place. So therefore, I think that also could have added to the number of turnovers. But Lance is right. Turnovers they're a fluky thing. And when you have to depend on them to win, then you can't have confidence in your team being successful week after week.
Like in 2019. I mean, let's be honest. That's exactly what it was. Like, the Steelers needed to have a defense that was going to get the ball back, get extra possessions for the offense. And even when they did, it didn't always equate to a victory because of the anemic offense and the quarterback play. But I want to ask you guys about the secondary. Before we do that, Anthony puts $5. I think that's $1. It might be a pound sign.
That's pounds.
Oh boy, he's throwing out pounds. No question.
I have no idea the conversion rate, so don't even ask.
He said no question, but just to say, great show, guys. Thank you, Anthony, for the donation. We really appreciate that. Anyone else who would like to contribute to the show can do so in the super chat down by where the comment bar is. To the right's a little $sign. You can click on that. Donate any amount of money goes directly to the show. We've used that for giveaways, buying these microphones for all our hosts. So we do appreciate that. But if you don't want to donate money, you can still help the show by liking our videos on YouTube, subscribing to the channel, setting up your notifications so that you get notified however you like, whether that's push button notification, email, whatever. Set it up so that you never miss a live broadcast. And if you listen on audio platforms, follow, give us good ratings. It all helps big time. So like the show, we appreciate that. And for joining us on this Sunday. Now, guys, we talked about the turnovers, takeaways, I like to say, because it very clearly delineates offense from defense. But this Steelers secondary, boy, has it gone from Swiss cheese, holes all through it, to pretty darn good. If you were to rank the Steelers secondary, and I'm talking about cornerbacks and safeties, would you say they're a top 5 unit, Lance?
Just off the top of my head, I would say yes. I think they're a top 5 unit. I think they're definitely the best unit in AFC North, without a doubt. I mean, the only unit that I'm thinking of that's better might be New England. Just because I think they got 23 interceptions. I don't know if that scheme. I'd say New England just because I think Stephon Gilmore is the best corner. And I think when you have the best corner, if you're trying to decide between two units that are very good, I think that tips you. And I think Stephon Gilmore and TJ Watt are probably 1 and 2, 2 and 1, depending on who you ask in terms of defensive player of the year. I think Gilmore will probably get defensive player of the year just because the Patriots made the playoffs. So I'm going to say the Steelers are probably a top 5 unit for sure.
Dave, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, they already have 2 Pro Bowlers, and you could make the argument that the better corner for the Steelers wasn't the one that was selected.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Mainly because he didn't have the interception numbers, because he was more of a quote-unquote shutdown corner at times. And which is funny, because I still don't understand why people keep saying we need to draft a shutdown corner. I'm like, and when are we going to play him? So as long as these guys are healthy. I think the secondary has just improved so much since the beginning, or since the end of 2018. It's just hard to describe it. I have to say, I feel this is one of the more complete defenses that the Steelers have had. Their defense in 2019, and as much of it as they can retain for 2020. It's so complete between getting to the quarterback, defending the run, and the secondary.
Think about it this way, Jeff. Just think about how flexible they are back there with Hilton and Sutton, that they found roles in nickel and in dime for both of those guys to kind of interchange and do different things. And it's just a case of, it's what Ian was talking about. When it's about player development, it's about coaching, and it's about making the young guys become the guys. And, sometimes the fan base has to be patient. Hilton has emerged. Sutton has emerged. I mean, just think about it. I mean, they have if Sean Davis were still on the roster, I mean, you got 4 interchangeable pieces just at the safety position, coupled with that Nelson signing was so important. And I think that it's not belittled, but I don't think it gets enough credit. I don't think Colbert gets enough credit for that Nelson signing, because he plucked Nelson as a young player from the Chiefs at a very good price. Imagine after what Nelson did for the Steelers this year, what he would be worth on the open market.
That's a good point.
So let's bring this full circle. Okay, complete 360, full circle. Let's answer the question that was posed in the headline, in the title of this episode, and that is, in 2020, is the Steelers' defense and the way that they play in terms of sacking the quarterback and taking the football away, is it sustainable? Dave, I'll go with you first.
It is sustainable, but as we know from year to year, you're never going to be able to put the same 11 guys out there from one year to the next. So it seems like they have a pretty good core. We still don't know what's going to happen with Dupree. We still don't know what's going to happen with Hargrave. We don't even know what's going to happen for sure with Mike Hilton. I'm sure he's going to get that. I don't know how they're going to tender him as a restricted free agent this year, but I'm hoping that they do. But first, they got to make room for it. So you never quite know. I'm going to throw one more number out there about this defense, and that is how many yards they gave up per play in 2019. They gave up 4.7 yards per play, and that was the first time.
That's sick.
The first time they were under 5 since 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah,
that's sick. And to your point, Dave, 4.7. You said 4.7.
Yeah, 4.72. I can't even read it. Yeah, 7243. Yep.
This is a passing league. If you guys are listening and watching, this is a passing league, and they gave up 4.7 yards per play. I mean, that has to be top 5 in the national. I mean, that has to be top 5.
Yeah, I didn't compare it to the rest of the league. I compared it to them historically. So
since 2012, that was the lowest, though.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's and again, with all these numbers, yards per play is outstanding. Turnovers is outstanding. Defense was it just shows you again just how important quarterback play is.
Yeah.
You know, with all of these positive trends and positive things, and you're talking about sustainability, the one thing you will sustain, losing if you have a bad quarterback. I mean, that is the thing that's 100% certain in the National Football League. If you don't get quality, consistent quarterback play, you are going to have sustained losing. Just look at the Cleveland Clowns.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I think that I'm done doubting the Steelers, Keith Butler, Mike Tomlin, and the players that they put on the field. Even if they let Bud Dupree go, I'm done doubting whether they can get 50 sacks in the season. I'm done because they've proven it time and time again. And if you lose Dupree and you get Tuitt back, you know, you talked a lot about Lance, how you have to, you know, in a passing league, you spread out defenses. So that's when your front four has to really win. That's what they do well. That's what Hayward does well. That's what Tuitt does well. That's what Hargrave did well, but we're not expecting him back next season. But I think that it is sustainable to a certain degree, and I think that's kind of what you all said as well. So, Snowman, go ahead, Lance. Did you have something to say?
I think it's sustainable, but it may look a little bit different. I mean, after all these numbers we talked about, the biggest number is points per game. Like, I don't care if you get 70 sacks, but if you give up, 30 a game, what does it matter? I don't care if you whatever. It's just points per game. I think some of the sack numbers, if Dupree and Hargrave don't come back, may look a little bit different. The turnovers may look a little bit different. But with Ben coming back, I think they give up maybe a few more points. But with Ben coming back, the point differential will get you to a point where it won't matter. Say they give up 2 more points per game. I think they averaged, I think around 18. I think it's about 18 and a half last year, something like that. Say it goes up to 20, but they only averaged like 18 and a half last year with Duck and all, and Mason Rudolph. With Ben, let's say the scoring goes up to 25 and you give up 20 and your points per game margin, your difference, your plus minus in points is 5 points. You're probably going to win a lot more games. So it's, you give up a little to get a little on the offensive side with Ben coming back. So I think their performance overall will be sustainable. It'll just look a little bit different statistically.
I agree. Go ahead, Dave.
And I have that answer for you about where that 4.7 fell in the league. It was the third lowest. The only teams that were lower were the 49ers and the Patriots.
Yeah, I was going to say 49ers, Patriots.
Yeah.
Patriots
two very good defenses.
Patriots probably what, about 4.5? A little bit under 4.5.
They were 4.66. Well, here they were so close. You have to go like really far back on the decimal. How about 4.6561 versus 4.6581 was the difference between the Patriots
and the Steelers aren't far off at 4.7.
Right.
At 4.72. Yeah. So they're right there.
So the Patriots had no excuse because they had the quote unquote GOAT.
GOAT.
The GOAT.
So there you go. So if you like defensive talk, then you really like the first half hour of our program. We appreciate you listening and watching live on YouTube. Those are participating in the live chat. Snowman puts $5 into the tip jar. He says, gentlemen, if you were the general manager, so for Kevin Colbert, for one day, what would you change about the Steelers? It's a tough question. Lance, we'll start with you. If you're making a change, what's it going to be?
Oh man, if I'm making a change, does it have to be? Well, I'm going to answer like Dave. I'm going to give a lot of other stuff involved in my answer. Does it have to be a player transaction? Does it have to be? Does it have
It's
to
a
be?
vague question. Let's keep it to roster personnel. So we'll leave coaches out of it. If you're going to do one thing, what would it be?
I was going to take the easy. I was going to keep coaches in and just take the easy. Fire Tomlin. That was just going to be my easy.
It's already been put in the live chat.
Fire
Hold on,
Tomlin.
let me bring it up. There you go, Thaddeus Kennedy. I'm firing Mike Tomlin.
I'm going to prevent Mike Tomlin from saying, if I could go into my crystal ball, do something different, whatever. I'm just answering this like Dave. I would have tried to find a better backup future quarterback.
Okay. Dave, what's your hedging answer? Your flip-flopping answer? Go ahead.
No, I'm going to take this in a different route. I would, because it does not hurt your salary cap at all. I would expand the coaching staff to have more coaches.
Okay. Nice. I like that.
I'm going to be specific, unlike Lance, and I'm going to say that I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to come out publicly and state that we are not going to sign in any way, shape, or form Bud Dupree. That we are going to let Bud Dupree walk, because I think that the Steelers can use that money to still better their team and still better their defense. And you're going to take a risk that maybe Dupree finally figured it out. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, is that the route that we need to take right now going into 2020 with a franchise tag or I don't think they're going to be able to get a long-term deal done, but I don't know. We'll see.
Because that's the $1 million question, Jeff.
Right now,
what would be worse for the Steelers? For them to not sign Dupree and him to go on and be very successful, or for them to sign Dupree and have him produce like his first 4 years and not like this last one to when they're overpaying him? Which one's worse?
The latter.
I agree
worse.
too.
Yeah. Now
I would rather lose out on him as a big player than sign him and have him not live up to it.
Vernon Woody brings this up. I'll put it up on the screen. He said, you could always try to do a sign and trade. Okay. You can put a franchise tag on a player, which really, keeps him locked up for that year. But the thing is you have to find a trading partner that's willing to pick up that franchise tag. And then if they want a long-term contract, they don't want the 1-year rental, they have to then negotiate a long-term deal. There's not a lot of teams that are willing to go through all of that, especially when they're like, you know what, we'll just wait. We'll just wait and see. Because let's be honest, if I'm another NFL team, if I'm another NFL GM, if I'm looking at Bud Dupree, I'm looking at his career and I'm thinking, wow, I'm not sure if I want to go. I mean, someone would, because they always do. Someone would pay him a boatload of money. But at the same time, I would have some pause about signing Bud Dupree for a long-term deal. So
I got to pause. Can you bring up Vernon Woody's comment again?
This one?
Is that Damian Woody's brother?
Nah. I don't know.
Hey, Vernon, is Damian Woody your kin? I mean, come on, man. They look alike. I mean, I don't know a lot of Woodies.
Damian Woody of Biggest Loser fame. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
wasn't he on that show?
Isn't Woody's name Damian Woody?
You're right. There is a Damian Woody.
He played for the Patriots.
The Patriots.
He also played for the Patriots.
Oh.
I think he has a ring with the Patriots. I think he played for both. He has to be Woody's
I know
cousin.
he played for the Patriots.
Anyways, okay. All right. I did want to bring up something that it is Pro Bowl related, but it's not specific to the game.
Let me pause you, Jeff.
Pause. Is this like a Saved by the Bell timeout?
How did we all forget what Snowman put in? The comment. Snowman said, can you bring up Snowman's comment?
Which one?
About Randy Land.
Yeah. All right. I'm firing Randy
Jeff,
Land.
how did you miss that, Jeff? Because you created Randy Land.
We should make shirts that say welcome to Randy Land.
You created Randy.
Where quarterbacks go to die.
Yes, you created Randy Land. How did you miss that, Jeff? I thought that would be your first change, Randy Land.
You're not firing him as long as Ben is still in the picture.
That's true.
Well, you're forgetting the caveat that I said when I was trying to narrow down Snowman's GM question, and that was it was specific to roster personnel. I said no coaches. Now Dave bucked the trend and went to coaches, but I just wanted players. I wanted to focus on players. So all right.
Okay, Randy. Yeah, Randy.
Well, and so Jovman says Jeff is going to have to eat his words about Randy Lane when the Steelers offense is fired next year, and it could be because he has his quarterback.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean. Hey, here's my theory. My theory is a good coach shows himself regardless of personnel. It doesn't always mean that there's results there, but you can show yourself through what happens when it doesn't matter who's your quarterback. That didn't happen. So Lance, Dave, myself. With Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback, we could probably dial up some plays that would work because Ben's a really good quarterback. But Mason Rudolph, Devlin Hodges, that's a different story. And he didn't scheme it well. So Randy Land is deserving of his Randy Land nickname and all the stuff that came with it. And maybe he'll prove me wrong in 2020, but he's not going to truly prove me wrong until Ben steps down in one way or another. And then he has another quarterback be successful.
Oh, Jeff, you got a challenge in the live chat from Jovman.
Yeah, Jovman likes to dig Jeff about lacrosse. So
okay, I'm not getting into that right now. That's for the after party. We'll talk about that. Vernon Woody says that he is second cousins with Damian Woody. Vernon says he's second cousins.
I knew it. As soon as I saw his, I thought it was Damian Woody posing as Vernon Woody in the live chat. So that's why I looked. I was like, "Is that Damian Woody in our group chat posing as Vernon Woody asking us questions?" I knew it.
You've got to be careful when you look at people in the live chat and their last name. People were jumping all over someone thinking that it was Jeff's wife, and here it was his mother.
They weren't harassing my mother. They were just saying like, "Oh, wow,
no, that's my mom."
No, my wife will listen to shows if I tell she likes to listen to the after party because it's not all about football. But my wife would not be in the live chat. Like if I saw
your mom was in the live chat. That's impressive.
If I saw my wife in the live chat, I would be concerned if my wife was in the live chat because she tells me she clearly has nothing better to do with her time. And then I'd wonder what's going on with our kids. Like, where are our children? Like, is someone watching our kids?
You got a lot of them too, so somebody's got to watch.
All right, let's get back to square. Saved by the Bell, timeout's off. All right, so back to the Pro Bowl. And I don't care about the Pro Bowl, but I did notice, and this article should be published on the website behindthesteelcurtain.com right now. The NFL has always used the Pro Bowl to try out rule changes for the future. Doesn't mean that the changes they're putting into place today at the Pro Bowl is what's going to be in place next year because it has to go through the competition committee. The owners have to vote on it, blah, 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 all that stuff. The rule changes that they're going to implement, though, is really interesting. And I detail all of them on the website. I actually went to the NFL's officiating website. I didn't know that one existed, but I was there. And I just, put them all in there. Like one of them is that if a wide receiver, if the offense has not been set for over a second, if they flinch, they can get back and get set just like a defensive player can, and it's not going to be called a false start. I'm not sure how they would ever implement this, but that's one of them. The one that's most interesting to me is how they're going to handle kickoffs and onside kicks. So listen to that. Lance, listen, because you didn't even understand it before we went on the air.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so let's say that a team scores a touchdown. They kick an extra point, or they go for a 2-point conversion. They have two options. Option number one is without even kicking the ball off, they just tell the opposition. So let's say it's Steelers and Ravens. The Steelers would say, Ravens, you start on the 25. We're not kicking it off. We're just giving you the ball on the 25. Now, if they wanted to kick the ball off, they still could. But they're just take the ball on the 25. Or if they want to try to get the ball back, so let's say they're trailing by a touchdown, they need the ball back. Instead of doing an onside kick, which is a very dangerous play, and this all comes down to safety of players, the Steelers would have the ball on their own 25-yard line with a one-play and 15 yards to go, chance to keep the ball. So let's say the Steelers and Ravens, Steelers have the ball. There's a throw for 16 yards. They get the ball where the player was downed, new set of downs, their ball moving forward. If they don't, let's say they get 14 yards, they did not get the first down. Baltimore would get the ball from the spot where the player was down, and now it's 1st and 10 going the other way. So,
you explained it better.
Well, we're on the show now. I have to explain it better.
So, for those of you thinking about this is very similar, if not exactly, what they did in the very short-lived AAF last spring. This was what they did in lieu of their kickoff, for the most part.
So, my question for you is, do you guys like these rule changes? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if I watch any of the game. But what are your thoughts, Dave?
Has every team cared enough to attempt to try an onside kick in the Pro Bowl? I don't think it's coming into play.
No, but I guarantee you some coaches try that 1st and 15 today.
You think so?
Why not?
Just to do it because the game doesn't matter. Yes, that would be pretty interesting. But bottom line, especially in the Pro Bowl, you don't want any guys hurt covering the kickoff. These are guys that, I mean, they're the superstars of their teams. They're not guys that are generally out there on a kickoff. So I like that they're doing it for the Pro Bowl, and I just don't know how else they're going to try it out to see if it's something that would work during the regular season, unless they just tried it out in like maybe the Hall of Fame game, just that game or something, rather than the whole preseason.
Lance, thoughts on the potential rule changes, especially with kickoffs?
I like the kickoffs. I would just say 25 every time and never kick it. You can get it on 25. I do that every single play because, I mean, I know that team up north does it a little bit differently. They kick off and they try to kick it to around the 2 to force you to come out and try to tackle you before the 25. But I don't trust the Steelers special teams well enough to do that consistently. So I would say 25, especially against a team that had a good kickoff returner. It would be 25, like automatically. I like the onside, the onside change because nobody gets onside kicks anymore now. I mean, they're almost impossible to recover. I like that. I like that. You know, try one play, get 16 yards, you keep. I like that. I like that's additional play that you can watch. I mean, nobody thinks your team is going to recover the onside. I mean, at that point, you're like, well, the game's over. And let me go get some chips, some nachos or something, man. We just lost. I like those rule changes. I don't think it has anything to do with player safety because the NFL doesn't care about player safety. But I like those rule changes.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I think that some of these changes would be good. I've long said that they are eventually going to eliminate the kickoff altogether in the game of football. That the Devin Hesters and those type of players that made a living and a name for themselves off of kick return touchdowns are going to be null and void. And so that's why who was the player, Dave, that Brian was just so crushed that the Steelers cut and actually got picked up by Denver? What's that guy's name?
Deontay Spencer.
Yeah. He's not even going to be a player in the league anymore because they're not going to have kickoffs eventually. So unless they can catch the football and run good routes and be a reliable receiver, there's no need for him. Or maybe if I guess punt return if there's
he was a pretty good punt returner.
Okay. All right. So yeah, with that, we'll see. I like to see these changes, and people always complain like, that's not football. Well, everyone was saying that about the extra point. They moved it back. Now the extra point's no gimme. Yeah, even Justin Tucker.
I like that.
Yeah.
To that rule change, I wonder, I'm assuming that rules like that don't have to be collectively bargained. I'm assuming that they don't, that's competition committee stuff. If teams vote for them, then they'll change it. Because think about it, to your point that you just said about Deontay Spencer, that takes a job away. You know, I mean, that takes a job away. And I'm sure the NFLPA is not happy about a roster spot and jobs being taken away from guys. Because like you said, like, what is Deontay Spencer going to do now? I mean, and he was really good as a kickoff returner. I mean, so, you know, but for me, for the Steelers, I would eliminate kickoff returns. We just take it on the 25. We're just going to eliminate that.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Unless you're a
That's
team
done.
like the Ravens with Justin Tucker, where they can kick that high kick that you catch it at the 5-yard line and you got to return it. And they're trying to pin you inside the 25. Most teams would probably just start at the 25. Let's save the time. You know why the NFL might not do that? I'll tell you exactly why the NFL might not do that. Because it would cut a commercial out.
Yeah.
It would cut a commercial out of the television broadcast, which is what? That's money.
You are absolutely right. That's an absolute point. That's a great point. I mean, to the point of taking a roster spot on the player side in the commercial will probably mean the rule won't change.
Exactly.
That's probably what, about 50 G's, per game on a Sunday. Like easily, like every kickoff, like 50 grand a kickoff across the entire schedule for 60. Oh no, it's not going anywhere. But the math is just rolling in my head. They're see, it's not about player safety. It's about the moolah.
There you go. I'm looking in the live chat. People have like full on discussions about my children now because it all stems from the fact the snowman. Yeah, great point. Thank you. It all stems from how my mom was in the live chat, and then someone said about the kids and all this stuff. Anyways, so guys, it's been a good show. I thought we had a lot of good discussion about the defense and then potential rule changes. We're not talking about Pro Bowl from a player standpoint. My wife said, "You going to watch the Pro Bowl?" I said, "I'll check Twitter every now and then." I just really hope I don't have to write a X player got hurt in the Pro Bowl article, which I actually had to do that last year. Juju Smith-Schuster left the game with a knee injury, and I had to write that article. And thankfully, it wasn't anything serious, but really hoping I don't have to do that this year. But we'll see. Will you guys tune in at all? Lance, you're driving. You won't be tuning in. Dave?
No, I'm not watching that.
I didn't think you would.
It depends what the kids are doing. If I can maybe have it on in the background, or if I'm just going to relax. It's that time of year now that football's over that Sunday afternoon turns into nap time pretty soon. Not for the kids,
I'd rather
me.
play cornhole than watch the Pro Bowl.
Hey, what's wrong with cornhole? You don't like cornhole?
Cornhole's great. I got my Steeler cornhole boards and everything.
I'm not a cornhole guy. I watched it on ESPN. I was like, never. I can't do this.
Well, why would you watch cornhole on TV?
Those guys are crazy.
Cornhole. You just play cornhole.
It jaded me. I might as well just drink, because I figure when you play cornhole, you're drinking anyway. I might as well just drink and not play cornhole.
To each their own.
Yes, it is.
I do want to say real quick that the shirt that I'm wearing for watching live on YouTube, there we go, is the logo, this SB Nation Behind the Steel Curtain logo. A lot of people have asked about where you can get those shirts. If you go to behindthesteelcurtain.com, you scroll down to where it says BTSC Fan Shop. You can get the shirt in black or gray. I think you can even get it in a hooded sweatshirt. They are really nice shirts. You should get one. Check it out.
I think you're sending us some, aren't you, Jeff?
You have to be a writer, Lane. Sorry, you're not a writer.
I tried to shame you live, but it didn't work.
You don't dabble in the written word. You
no, just the no. I did it for like 3 weeks, and I said, "Man, I can't do this."
And I was doing all the work.
It was like too much. It's like I can't.
What was the name of that? What was the name of that feature that you were doing?
Man, I don't know, because
like the Steelers something guy, like the Steelers.
Yeah, something. I couldn't. I was like, man, I can't do this.
I had to think of the questions. I had to send it to him. He had to just respond with 3 paragraphs. I had to take it and put it into an article and formulate it, and I did all the work. And he's like, "Look at me! I'll take all this credit for it." Jeez.
Yeah, so it stopped. so it stopped.
Oh, man.
So, all right. So, hey, we're going to have a usual week, a normal week in terms of programming for those that like to listen to all our podcasts, 7 podcasts a week. That's what we continue to do. We hope you've been enjoying it. For those that have been curious, this month, which is our first down month of the off season, we're still averaging about 3.2 thousand downloads a day. That's amazing. That's not even counting people that watch on YouTube. That's just an audio platform. So if you're ever wondering about our growth, we are growing. Keep it up. And Lance, why don't you send us off?
Before I send us off, I'm scared. I'm scared of Wes, because he's building an axe throwing board in his backyard.
That sounds awesome. That sounds really
Didn't
awesome.
you ever? Well,
If you mix
I did
alcohol
that
with
at a Renaissance festival one time.
Were you dressed up in Renaissance clothing as
I bet
well?
he was.
Oh no,
No,
I've
he wore
gone to
it.
one in
he
my life,
was.
and it was like
I bet he wore a
15
Steelers
years
helmet.
ago, and I'm like,
Did you wear your Steelers helmet?
He used the force.
that. Like I said, that was way before
Marriage,
any
kids,
of the
all that
of
stuff.
the
Yeah.
no, it was before kids. Actually, it was my wife and I went, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of boring. I'm like, oh, throwing axes, I'll do that. I got a special award because I actually stuck the handle in the target, which means I got it axe backwards.
Excalibur Dave. You pulled the axe from the stone. Oh, I got to give a big shout out to my mom. If that's my mom in the live chat, Jacqueline Williams. My mom stepped up and got into the live chat.
Yeah,
So we have 2 moms in the live chat.
Yeah, not right now. Yeah,
Hey.
you're right.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Mom. I mean, wow. I am absolutely impressed that my mom is in the live chat. Wow. Yeah. Ooh, I'm impressed. I'm gonna have to give her a call after the show. Like, hey.
And she's gonna say, I don't even know what you're talking about. What's a live chat?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, all right,
Exactly. Let me take us out with, as always, thank you, and tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
amen, brother. Thanks, guys, for your time. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Steelers Q&A.